The sterile smell of antiseptic had become the only scent I trusted anymore. For 11 years, my world had been the pale green walls of a state psychiatric facility in upstate New York, where the fluorescent lights hummed day and night like some insect refusing to die. I had grown used to it, used to the groaning of old pipes, the shuffle of slippers in the hallway, the soft click of the nurse's badge each morning. A man can get used to almost anything if he has no other choice. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for the moment my twin brother walked into that visiting room with a split lip and a bandage over his right eye. Before I go any further, do me a kindness and tell me down in the comments where you're listening from tonight. I want to know who's with me, because this story, the one I'm about to share, is not an easy one to carry alone. My name is Walter. My brother's name is Warren. We are identical twins, born 7 minutes apart on a cold February morning in 1957, in a small coal town in West Virginia. Our mama used to say Warren got her kindness and I got her fire, and that the Lord must have had a plan when he split one soul between two bodies. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. All I know is that Warren spent his whole life making peace with people, and I spent mine breaking them when they didn't deserve peace. That's why he raised a family, and I raised hell. That's why he became a church deacon, and I became patient. Number 4471. When Warren came shuffling into that visiting room on a Thursday afternoon in October, I almost didn't recognize him. My own mirror image. He had lost weight. His shoulders, always broad like our father's, were curled forward as if he were trying to fold himself up and disappear. His hands trembled when he reached for the plastic chair. And his face, Lord, his face was a roadmap of somebody else's anger. A yellowing bruise on his jaw, a swollen eye that wouldn't quite open all the way, a cut lip that had scabbed over and split again. I stood up so fast the chair scraped against the tile, and the orderly by the door took a step forward, eyeing me like he always did. 11 years in that place, and they still looked at me like I might detonate. Maybe they were right to. Warren, I said, and my voice came out rough because I had not used it much that week. Brother, what in God's name happened to you? He tried to wave it off the way he always did. Warren was the kind of man who would bleed out in a parking lot and tell the paramedics not to fuss. Nothing, Walt. Just took a fall. You know how clumsy I've gotten. Don't you lie to me, I said, lower now because the orderly was still watching. I have known you since before we had names. You don't fall. You don't bruise like that from falling. Who did this? He stared at the table for a long time. Warren was a man of faith, and faith had taught him to suffer quietly. But even faith has its limits. Finally, he looked up at me, and his good eye was wet. It's Marcus, he whispered. My granddaughter's husband. I sat back down slow. My granddaughter, he had said. He meant Denise's girl, Sabrina. Sabrina had been maybe 14 years old the last time I saw her, a shy, bookish thing who used to send me drawings of birds through the mail. I had her pictures taped above my bunk for years, until the paper yellowed and curled at the edges. She must be near 30 now, a grown woman. He hits her, Walt, Warren said. His voice cracked. He hits Sabrina. He hits the baby too, little Micah. He's only 4 years old. I went over there 2 weeks ago to try and talk some sense into Marcus, and he laughed at me. Walt, he and his brother Dale and his mama Geraldine, they all laughed. And then Marcus beat the daylights out of me right there in the kitchen while Sabrina was crying in the hallway and the baby was hiding behind the couch. Dale held me down. Geraldine told me I deserved it for sticking my nose in. Something inside my chest went very still. Cold and still, like a pond freezing over in one single breath. I had known that stillness before. I had known it at 17, when 3 boys at the county fairground cornered Warren and tried to push him off the Ferris wheel platform for being soft-spoken. I had known it at 19, when a man tried to rob our mama's convenience store. I had known it at 23, when a drunk driver killed my fiancée and walked out of court with a suspended license. Each time, that stillness had risen up in me like a tide, and each time, somebody had paid for it. The last time, I had put a man in a wheelchair and the judge had decided society was safer with me behind locked doors. They weren't wrong, maybe, but they also weren't finished because the tide was rising again. "Warren," I said quietly, "look at me." He looked up. "How long has this been going on?" 4 years, maybe 5. She won't leave him. She says she loves him, Walt. She says he'll change. I told Denise, but Denise is living out in Arizona now with her new husband, and she says there's nothing she can do from that far away. I'm all Sabrina and Micah have got. You're not all they've got, I said. Not anymore. He frowned at me. Slowly, I watched the same thought travel into his mind that was already moving around in mine. I could see it happen because we were twins, and sometimes thinking together was the easiest thing in the world. "No, Walt," he breathed. "No. They'll put you back in here forever. You just got your review in 6 months. The doctor said you were making progress." "Warren," I said, "I have been making progress for 11 years. I have read every book in that pitiful library 3 times. I have done 100,000 push-ups on this very floor. I have learned to sit with my anger until it settles into something I can aim instead of something that aims me. The doctors don't know what they've made. They think they've tamed something. They haven't. They've sharpened it. And right now, brother, it needs to be used." Warren's good eye filled up. "I can't ask you to do this." "You didn't ask," I said. "I'm telling. You are going to stay right here in my bed. You are going to eat the food they bring you and take the pills they hand you and keep your mouth shut. The orderlies barely look at us anymore. They will not know the difference. And I am going to walk out of here as Warren Hayes, church deacon, gentle grandfather, and I am going to pay a visit to your granddaughter's home. I am going to see what Marcus is made of. Walt. Warren." We stared at each other across that little plastic table, 2 old men with the same face and very different lives, and then, slowly, my brother nodded. It took less than an hour to swap. His clothes for mine, his wedding ring onto my finger, the photograph of his late wife, Eleanor, tucked into my shirt pocket over my heart. I helped him into my slippers and the sweatpants I had worn for 3 days. I combed my hair the way he combed his. I practiced his soft, tired voice until it sat right in my throat. The woman at the discharge desk handed me a clipboard and a plastic bag containing Warren's wallet and keys. She didn't even look up. "Take care, Mr. Hayes," she said. "Drive safe." "Yes, ma'am," I said in Warren's gentle cadence. "God bless you." The bus to Syracuse took 3 hours. I watched the leaves turn red outside the window, and I thought about what 11 years of concrete had done to a man's eyes, because everything looked too bright, too wide, too loud. Even the sky seemed to be moving faster than I remembered. By the time I reached Warren's little shotgun house on a narrow street in the east side of Syracuse, the sun was dipping low and the windows were glowing orange. I let myself in with his key. The house smelled like cedar and old books and pipe tobacco. Warren's home. My brother's whole sweet, gentle life, arranged in neat little piles. A Bible on the side table. Eleanor's wedding photograph on the mantel. A worn recliner facing a small television. The kitchen clock ticking softly. I stood there for a long moment, breathing it in, letting myself remember what a real home smelled like. Then I went to Sabrina's house. She and Marcus lived in a rental on Butternut Street, a block of peeling paint and dying lawns. The address Warren had given me was a narrow 2-story with a front porch that sagged on one side. A child's tricycle was tipped over in the yard. One of the windows had been patched with duct tape. I knocked. Nobody came. I knocked again. I heard small footsteps inside, then a whisper, then nothing. Finally, the door opened about 4 inches, and a small face appeared at waist level. A little boy, thin, brown-eyed, with curls that hadn't been combed. He was wearing a shirt 2 sizes too big and a pair of shorts with a stain down the front. "Papa?" he whispered. My knees nearly gave out. "Yeah, buddy," I said, soft as I knew how. "It's Papa. Can I come in?" He opened the door slowly. I stepped inside. The house hit me like a slap. It smelled of stale grease, sweat, and something sour, like milk gone bad and never cleaned up. The living room was a disaster. A sagging couch, a busted coffee table, a television blaring a cartoon that nobody was watching, laundry in heaps, fast food wrappers, an ashtray overflowing on the arm of the couch. "Baby," I said to the boy kneeling down, "where's your mama?" "Kitchen," he whispered. He would not meet my eyes. He kept glancing at the hallway. "But you gotta be quiet, Pawpaw. Daddy's sleeping." Daddy's sleeping. 4 years old, and already he knew to whisper in his own house. I walked to the kitchen. Sabrina was at the sink, her back to me, washing dishes in slow, careful movements. I barely recognized my own great niece. She had been a round-cheeked teenager with thick braids the last time I'd seen her photograph. Now she was hollow-cheeked, so thin her shoulder blades jutted out through her sweater like wings, trying to cut their way through. Her hair was pulled back in a rough knot. She was wearing long sleeves and long pants on a warm October evening. She turned when she heard me come in, and she flinched. Not a startle, a flinch. The kind of flinch that only comes from learning what a raised voice means. "Papa, you scared me," she said, forcing a tiny smile. "Sabrina," I said, "baby, look at me." She didn't want to. I could see that. But she did. And when her eyes met mine, I saw every bruise Warren had described, and 100 more he hadn't. Not just on her skin, in her. "How was your day, Papa?" she asked, because she did not know what else to say. "Did you get to your appointment?" "It was fine, honey," I said in Warren's voice. "Where's Micah's dinner?" "I was just about to. I was gonna make him a sandwich." "I didn't. Marcus said not to cook tonight. He doesn't want me banging around waking him up." "Sabrina," I said gently, "you go on and sit down. I'll make Micah a sandwich." She looked at me like I'd grown a second head. In that look, I understood everything. Warren had never stood up. Not really. He had prayed, he had pleaded, he had counseled, but he had not stood up because Warren did not know how. And I saw, in that moment, that Sabrina had mistaken his gentleness for the way the world worked. She thought all the men in her life would be afraid, and she had picked a man who made her afraid instead. That was going to change tonight. I had just finished making Micah a peanut butter sandwich when I heard the back door slam, and heavy boots on the linoleum, and a voice that didn't belong to the husband. A younger, thicker voice. "Where's my brother at? He's still out cold." Dale. It had to be Dale. He filled the kitchen doorway, a man in his late 20s, built like a refrigerator, with a neck tattoo and a crooked nose that had clearly been broken more than once and badly set. Behind him waddled a heavy-set older woman in a housecoat, her hair in rollers, her mouth already twisted into a sneer. Geraldine, Marcus's mama. Just the way Warren had described her. "Huh, Lord, look who it is," Geraldine said, rolling her eyes so hard I thought they might stick. "The old preacher done crawled back. Didn't get enough last time, huh?" Dale laughed. A short, mean bark of a laugh. Sabrina went very still by the sink. Little Micah crept behind my leg and grabbed a fistful of my pants. "What you doing in my boy's kitchen, old man?" Geraldine demanded. "You cooking? You think you run things here? Marcus gonna wake up and lose his mind." "I'm making my great-grandson a sandwich," I said, setting the plate down gently in front of Micah, "since his mama didn't get to because she's lazy," Geraldine snapped. "Always been lazy. Marcus works his tail off driving that truck and comes home to a pigsty and no dinner. No wonder he has to correct her." I turned around slowly. "Correct her," I said. "You heard me." There was a stillness in the kitchen. I felt my 11 years come up through the soles of my feet and settle into my shoulders. I took one step forward. Geraldine did not step back, but something flickered in her eyes. A tiny animal recognition that the old preacher in front of her was not quite behaving like the old preacher. Then I heard the little voice behind me. "Please don't hit Mama again," Micah whispered. The tide rose. "You know what, Geraldine?" I said softly. "Why don't you go on home tonight? And you, Dale, you go on home tonight. And you, Dale, you go on home too. Marcus is going to need his rest." "Who the hell are you to tell me where to go?" Dale growled, squaring up. "Old man, you need to remember where you got put last time." I smiled at him. It must have been a strange smile because he actually took half a step back. "Son," I said in a voice that was no longer Warren's, "you have no idea where I got put last time." There was a long second where the air in that kitchen felt like it might catch fire. Then Geraldine snorted and grabbed Dale's elbow. "Come on, baby. Leave the old fool alone. Marcus will handle him. He's gonna love hearing about this." They left, slamming the back door hard enough to rattle the dishes. I turned to Sabrina. She was trembling. "Papa," she said, "you shouldn't have. When Marcus wakes up, he's going to. He's going to. He's going to. He's going to." "Sabrina," I said, "sit down, baby. I need you to hear me. Do you trust me?" She swallowed hard. She looked at Micah. She looked at the kitchen she had been trapped in for 5 years. Then she looked back at me, and something very old and very scared in her let go. "Yes, Papa." "Then you are going to take Micah upstairs. You are going to pack one bag only, clothes and anything that matters to the boy. You are going to wait in the bedroom with the door locked, and you are not going to come out, no matter what you hear, until I come get you. Do you understand me? Papa, please don't. Do you understand me, Sabrina?" "Yes, sir." She took Micah by the hand and went upstairs. I sat down at the kitchen table and waited for Marcus to wake up. It was close to 11 at night when I heard the floor creak in the back bedroom. Heavy, sluggish footsteps. A man's voice muttering, cursing. Then the bedroom door banged open, and Marcus came shuffling into the kitchen in his boxers and a stained undershirt, scratching his belly. He was big. Warren had not lied about that. 6'3", thick through the chest, sloppy with muscle gone soft at the edges. Dark hair matted from sleep. A face that had probably been handsome once before meanness set into it. He saw me sitting at his table and he stopped. "The hell are you doing here, old man?" "Hello, Marcus," I said quietly. "I thought I told you last time. You come around my house again, you ain't walking out." "You did tell me that," I said. "I remember." He came across the kitchen fast for a man his size. He reached for the collar of my shirt, the way I imagine he reached for his wife's. I let him get close. I let him wrap his fist in the fabric at my throat. I wanted him to feel for 1 second like he had won. Then I broke his hand. It was a simple thing. I caught his wrist as he pulled, twisted it inward and back, and used his own body weight against him. The bones in the back of his hand cracked like dry twigs. He screamed, a high, wet scream, and went down to one knee on the linoleum. I stood up, stepped around him, and drove my knee up under his jaw. His head snapped back and his eyes rolled white, and he folded onto the floor like a suit of clothes somebody had dropped. I stood there for a moment, breathing. 11 years of silence sat inside my ribs. I listened to it. I let it settle. I did not hit him again. Then I called 911. "Yes, ma'am," I said, calm as a Sunday morning. "My name is Warren Hayes. I'm at Fort Ayton, Butternut Street. My granddaughter has been the victim of domestic violence for several years. Her husband just attacked me in the kitchen and I defended myself. I need officers and an ambulance. And I have medical records going back 4 years that I'd like them to see." I did too. Warren had kept them. Every time Sabrina had shown up at his door with a split lip, he had taken photographs. He had written dates. He had kept a little notebook that he showed me when I sat down in his recliner that afternoon. My gentle brother, the church deacon, had been building a case in silence for half a decade, praying that one day somebody would finally be able to use it. That somebody was me. The officers who came were a young woman named Officer Reyes and a heavy-set older man named Sergeant Flannery. They took one look at Sabrina coming down the stairs in a long-sleeved shirt in October, and another look at Micah clutching her leg, and another look at Marcus groaning on the kitchen floor with a broken hand, and then they looked at the notebook and the photographs I laid out on the kitchen table. Sergeant Flannery's jaw set so hard I thought I heard a tooth crack. "Sir," he said to me, "can you walk us through exactly what happened tonight?" I did, slowly, calmly. In Warren's soft voice, I did not mention that I was not Warren. They arrested Marcus that night, not for attacking me, although they could have. They arrested him for 5 years of documented domestic violence because Sabrina, for the first time in her adult life, found her voice. She sat at her own kitchen table with Officer Reyes beside her, and she said, quiet but steady, "Yes, ma'am. He's been hitting me. He's been hitting our boy. I want to press charges." But I knew Marcus was only one head of the snake. The next evening, Geraldine and Dale came over. I had called them myself, using Marcus's phone. "Come on by tonight," I had texted, mimicking his clipped, angry style. "The old man's back. Bring the belt." I had prepared the house carefully. I had turned off the overhead light in the bedroom. I had left only the hallway light on, spilling just a thin yellow strip across the doorway. I had laid a body-shaped bundle of pillows and blankets under the bedspread, wrapped in an old coat. From the hallway, in the dim light, it looked exactly like a man curled up on his side, bound at the wrists to the bedposts with lengths of clothesline. And I had propped my cell phone on the dresser, hidden behind a framed picture, the camera angled toward the bed, already recording. I had also made one more arrangement. Marcus, fresh out of the county hospital with his hand in a splint and a court order keeping him away from Sabrina, had a brother named Dale who was not known for being bright. When Dale and Geraldine came through that unlocked back door, I had dragged Marcus, drugged up on the painkillers he'd been prescribed, and yes, I'm not proud, but I had helped them along with a cup of strong coffee laced with a sleeping pill from Warren's medicine cabinet into that bed. I had tied his good wrist to the headboard. I had stuffed a pillowcase into his mouth. I had pulled the blanket up to his chin. Then I had hidden in the closet and waited. "He's in the back bedroom," I called out, pitching my voice high and frightened through the closet door. "He's got me tied up. Geraldine, please. I can't feel my hand. Dale, I'm begging you." I heard their boots hit the kitchen floor. I heard Geraldine hiss, "That's right, old man. Beg, beg like you should have last time." Dale was laughing as he came down the hallway. He had something metal in his hand. I could hear it clink against the doorframe. Geraldine was huffing behind him, and she was saying the ugliest words I have ever heard a mother say in my life. "Teach him, baby," she was saying. "Teach that old sanctified buzzard. Teach him for embarrassing our family. Teach him for getting my Marcus put in a cell. Teach him good." They went into that dark bedroom. They saw the shape under the covers. They saw what they thought was a tied-up old man, and they went to work. I will not describe what I heard. I will say only that Dale swung a tire iron. I will say that Geraldine, that 60-something-year-old mother, used a cast-iron skillet. I will say that they did it for almost 4 minutes before the muffled sounds from under the blanket stopped being sounds at all, and I stepped out of the closet and flipped on the overhead light. Geraldine saw her son's face first. The pillowcase had fallen away during the beating. She saw Marcus's broken, bloodied mouth. She saw his one good hand, now not so good. She saw the splint she herself had helped the hospital strap on the day before, now shattered underneath her own skillet. Her scream was something I will carry to my grave. "Baby," she wailed. "Oh God! Oh God! Oh God, baby, I didn't know. Mama didn't know." Dale stood frozen, the tire iron hanging at his side. His face was the color of wet cement. I reached over and picked up my phone from behind the picture frame. The little red recording light blinked at them. "Dale," I said. "Geraldine, put the weapons down." They did. I called 911 again. Sergeant Flannery, when he arrived, looked at me for a long moment before he said a single word. I do not know what he saw in my face. Whatever it was, he did not ask a single question that I did not want to answer. He watched the video. He watched it again. He radioed for a second ambulance, and then he quietly read Geraldine and Dale their rights while Officer Reyes helped load Marcus, still breathing, barely, onto the stretcher. Marcus lived. The doctors said it was a miracle, though I suspect miracles have nothing to do with it, and dumb luck has everything to do with it. He would never use his right hand the same way again. He would spend the next 14 years in a state penitentiary for what the court would call aggravated domestic assault and child endangerment. Geraldine and Dale would each draw 12 years apiece for aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. The video made sure of it. Their own voices, swearing vengeance, swinging the weapons, made sure of it. Sabrina filed for divorce 2 days later, while Marcus was still in the hospital under guard. She did not cry. She signed her name and she looked up at the lawyer and she said, "What do I need to do next?" Like a woman who had finally been handed the keys to her own life. I drove her and Micah to Warren's house that weekend. Warren was home by then, of course. We had swapped back 3 days after the arrests. On a quiet morning with no witnesses, the way we had swapped in the first place. The hospital never knew. The doctors saw what they wanted to see, which was a tired old man who had been through a lot, and they discharged him on schedule. I went back to finish out my review, and when the review came 6 months later, the board, seeing 11 years of model behavior and no new incidents, granted me release on supervised conditional status. Warren met me at the gate. We did not hug. We did not need to. We drove home in silence, the way only twins can share silence, full and round and complete. And when we pulled up to his little shotgun house on the east side of Syracuse, Sabrina was on the porch with Micah in her lap, and her hair was down and her sleeves were rolled up. And there were no bruises anywhere. Micah ran to the gate. "Papa Walt," he shouted. "Papa Walt, come see what I drew." I knelt down and he showed me a crayon drawing of a house with 4 stick figures in front of it. Mama, Micah, Papa Warren, Papa Walt, 4 people, a whole family. A thing I did not know I was part of until that very moment. That was almost 3 years ago now. Sabrina is back in school, studying to be a nurse. She laughs sometimes now. A real laugh, the kind that comes from the belly, not the kind you force out to keep the peace. Micah is in kindergarten. He doesn't flinch anymore when somebody drops a dish. He still sleeps with a nightlight, and he probably always will, but his dreams are his own now, and not somebody else's nightmare. Warren is well. His face healed. His spirit took longer because my brother blamed himself for years that he hadn't done what I did sooner. I had to sit him down one evening on his back porch and tell him, "Warren, you did the thing that was yours to do, which was to keep the notebook, to save the photographs, to pray for the day somebody could use them. And I did the thing that was mine to do. There is no shame in being a gentle man in a cruel world. The shame belongs to the cruel. As for me, I am out. I am free under conditions. I see a counselor every Tuesday. I take my medication. I walk 2 miles every morning along the river. I am learning, at 69 years old, what a quiet life feels like, and I find I do not hate it. But I will tell you this, and I want you to hear me. I am not proud of what I did in that bedroom. I set a trap, and I let a mother beat her own son half to death, and I recorded it, and I used it. Some nights I sit with that, and I ask myself what kind of man I am. I do not have a clean answer. What I have is this. I have a great niece who sleeps through the night. I have a little boy who draws pictures of 4 stick figures and calls me Papa. I have a brother whose face no longer carries somebody else's handiwork, and I have the knowledge that when the call came, I picked up. If you are listening to me tonight, and somebody in your family is walking around in long sleeves in the summertime, if somebody flinches when a door slams, if a child in your world whispers when his daddy's sleeping, do not wait for the snake to strike 3 more times. Do not tell yourself it is not your business. Family is your business. That is the whole point of family. You do not have to do what I did. I hope you don't. I hope you find a quieter road. Call the hotline. Call the police. Call a lawyer. Drive over and put your sister, your niece, your daughter in your car and take her home with you. You are allowed. You are always allowed. But if the day ever comes when the road runs out and there is nobody else, and the person you love is about to be broken beyond repair, and the system has failed, and the neighbors have looked away, and you are the only one left standing in that doorway, I want you to remember an old man from West Virginia who spent 11 years in a psychiatric hospital and walked out as somebody else to do what needed doing. Remember that being soft-spoken is not the same as being weak. Remember that being old is not the same as being done. Remember that sometimes the person the world wrote off is exactly the person God was saving for the moment. And remember, above all, that love is not a feeling. Love is a decision you make with your hands and your feet and your whole stubborn life. Tell me in the comments, was there ever somebody in your family who stood in the doorway for you when nobody else would? Say their name tonight. Let them be remembered. Thank you for sitting with me through this. My name is Walter, and I will be here next week with another story and another voice from the other side of a life I am still learning how to live. Until then, take care of each other, lock your doors, love your people, and if you can, forgive the ones like me who learned too late how to do it gently. Good night from Syracuse.